I think I'm in love with you." That's what she said. Those exact words. In that exact order. "Can you say something, please?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Okay, forget it. I'm drunk. I don't know what I'm saying." "Reese." "No, seriously. Forget it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." That was a Saturday night in October. In our apartment. On our couch. With the leftover birthday cake still sitting on the kitchen counter, and the string lights we'd hung 2 years ago, still blinking unevenly above the TV. And I want to tell you about the morning that came after that night. Because she woke up, and she remembered everything. Every single word. And she looked at me from across the hallway with the most terrified eyes I've ever seen on a human face. And she smiled like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just cracked my whole world open the night before and left me standing in the rubble. I smiled back. And that was the beginning of the end of us pretending. Let me back up. Let me tell you how we got there. Because it didn't start that Saturday night. It started the way it always starts. Slowly. Quietly. In all the moments too small to name until suddenly they aren't. Reese and I met at orientation week of our junior year at college in Boston. We'd both transferred in. Her from a school in Oregon she never wanted to talk about. Me from a community college in New Jersey where I'd spent 2 years convincing myself I was fine. We ended up at the same table during a mixer for transfer students that neither of us wanted to be at. She was wearing a gray crew neck with a tiny hole near the collar, and she was eating a chocolate chip cookie with the focused commitment of someone who had decided the party wasn't worth her energy, but the cookie absolutely was. I sat down next to her because she looked like the only person in the room who wasn't performing. "This is terrible," I said. She looked at me sideways. "The party or the cookie?" "The party." She held the cookie out to me. "Cookie's actually pretty good." I took it. I ate half. I handed it back. We stayed at that table for 2 hours while everyone else moved around us. By the end of the night, I knew that her name was Reese, that she was studying urban planning, that she'd left Oregon because of something she described only as a family situation, and that she had a very specific and deeply held belief that fluorescent lighting was responsible for at least 30% of human suffering. I thought she was funny. I thought she was interesting. I thought, I'm going to like having this person as a friend. That was it. That was the whole thought. Clean and simple and completely honest. We moved into the same apartment building that spring. Different units, same floor. By our senior year, we were splitting 1 2-bedroom because it made more financial sense, and also because by then, the idea of not having her 20 feet away felt genuinely weird. Our apartment was small and never quite clean, and always slightly too warm because the radiator had 2 settings, off and volcanic. We had a couch we'd found on the sidewalk that was somehow the most comfortable piece of furniture either of us had ever encountered. We had a kitchen where things lived in whatever cabinet they happened to end up in and stayed there forever. We had a single bathroom and a system. We had a life. It was our life. I didn't examine it too closely because it worked and it was good and I was happy in it, and I'm the kind of person who, when something is working, does not go poking around asking why. Reese is, one of those people who makes you feel like the room is slightly more interesting when they're in it. Not loud about it, not performing, just present in a way that changes the atmosphere. She listens like she means it. She notices things. She'll see that you're tired before you've said a word, and she'll just quietly refill your coffee without making it a thing. She's the kind of person who takes care of you sideways. Never head on. Never in a way that asks you to acknowledge it. I loved that about her. I loved a lot of things about her. But I want to be very clear. At the time, I would have told you that it was friendship. Completely, entirely, in every molecule, friendship. And I would have meant it. I really would have. I can trace it back now. That's the awful part. Looking back, I can see every single moment where something shifted slightly, and I just didn't look at it directly. Like when you're driving and there's something in your peripheral vision and you tell yourself it's nothing. It's just the light. Keep your eyes on the road. There was a night in February. We were both studying. The apartment was cold, and at some point Reese fell asleep on the couch with her textbook open on her chest. I got up to get water and I walked past her, and she looked so... there's no other word for it. She looked so peaceful, and something in my chest did something that I can only describe as a kind of ache. I stood there for probably 10 seconds too long looking at her. Then I got my water, and I went back to my desk and I thought, I really love my best friend. That's it. That's the whole thing. She's my person, and I love her. And that's completely normal. I did not think about the ache. March. We went to a gallery opening with a group of friends, and at one point I lost track of everyone. And I found Reese standing alone in front of this large abstract painting. Her head tilted slightly to the left, her arms crossed loosely, just looking. And something happened in my stomach. I walked up next to her. I didn't say anything for a second. Neither did she. Then she said, I think it's supposed to be the ocean, but it looks like someone had feelings and then panicked. I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. And she looked at me when I laughed. Really looked at me, that direct gray-eyed look she has. And she smiled. And I thought, oh, just that. Just oh. Then immediately, nothing. That was nothing. You're being weird. April. Her birthday. I spent 2 weeks figuring out what to get her, and ended up making her a playlist, and also a card that I rewrote 4 times because the first 3 felt, I don't know, too much, too specific, too something. She cried a little when she read the final one. Just a little, just for a second, and then she blinked it away and said, shut up, and hugged me, and I held on maybe 1 second longer than I normally would have. I noticed. I filed it under. You're just emotional. It was a good card. This is fine. May. We were watching a movie late on a Wednesday. Some thriller we both kept talking over because we kept predicting things wrong and being pleased about it. And at some point, we ended up leaning against each other on the couch without either of us deciding to. Her shoulder under mine. Her hand somewhere near my knee. Not touching. Just near. At some point, the movie ended and neither of us moved. The credits rolled. The screen went dark. The apartment was quiet. I was aware of every point of contact between us, with a precision that had no business being there. I shifted. I said something about needing to go to bed. She said, yeah, same. We both got up and went to our rooms, and I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling for 45 minutes, and I thought about literally anything else until I fell asleep. Because here's the thing. Here's what I was doing, what I can see so clearly now. I was collecting the evidence and refusing to look at what it was evidence of. I was keeping a very careful file of moments and labeling every single one of them wrong. Not because I was stupid, not because I was oblivious, but because I was scared. In the vague, pre-verbal way you're scared of something before you have the word for it. In the way that makes you step around a thing very carefully without ever looking down to see what you're stepping around. I knew Reese better than almost anyone on earth. I knew the way she organized her worry into productivity. I knew she always burned the first pancake on purpose because she said the first one was a sacrifice to the pan. I knew she called her sister every Sunday at noon, and the call always started serious and ended with both of them laughing about something from their childhood. I knew her, and knowing her was... it had become something I didn't know how to look at directly. Then came June. Her girlfriend Petra came back into her life. They'd broken up 8 months before I ever met Reese. That much I knew. Petra was the vague shape of a past Reese didn't spend a lot of time on. A chapter that was closed. And then it wasn't. Petra texted. Then they got coffee. Then Reese came home from that coffee looking like someone who had been surprised by themselves, and didn't know if it was good or bad. She wants to try again, Reese told me, leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, not quite looking at me. What do you want? I asked. She was quiet for a second. I don't know yet, I said. Then take the time to figure it out. Completely calm, completely steady. The perfect best friend response. Inside, I felt something that I immediately refused to name. They got back together in July. Petra was fine. I want to be accurate here. She was actually fine. She was perfectly nice, reasonably funny, clearly into Reese in a way that any objective person could see was genuine. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't give me a reason. But I did not like being in the same room as her. I tried very hard not to examine why. I told myself it was adjustment. I told myself it was the change in dynamic. Reese and I had spent 2 years in our little 2-person world, and now there was a third person. And that's just an adjustment curve. Normal, human, completely explainable. I was very busy that summer. Work, I said. Lots going on. I pulled away from the apartment gradually, the way you turn down a volume knob. Slowly enough that no one notices. Reese noticed. She showed up at the coffee shop where I was working a 3rd afternoon in a row and sat across from me during my break and said, "Are you mad at me?" What? No. Why would I be mad at you? You've been weird since July. I haven't been weird. She looked at me. That look. The one that meant she wasn't going to argue, but she also wasn't going to pretend. Okay, she said finally. And we moved on. We always moved on. That was one of the best things about us, and also, I was starting to understand, one of the ways we kept almost having conversations we needed to have. September. Petra moved to Chicago for a job. Reese cried the night before Petra left, just for a little while in our living room, with me sitting next to her on the sidewalk couch. I put my arm around her. She leaned into it. I sat with the feeling of her crying against my shoulder, and I thought, this is what you do for someone you love. You sit with them when they're sad. You hold space for feelings that have nothing to do with you. I was getting very good at talking myself through things with the right language. 2 weeks after Petra left, they broke up. Distance, Reese said. They'd tried it before and it didn't work. And they both knew going in that it probably wouldn't work again. And sometimes you have to try anyway, so you know for sure. Are you okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Honestly, yeah. And she did seem okay. Quieter for a week. Then herself again. Then, somehow, more herself than she'd been in months. Looser, quicker to laugh, coming home on Friday nights with food and a movie, and the specific energy of someone who had put something down that had been heavier than they realized. I should have been paying attention to that energy. Instead, I was paying attention to the fact that she was back. Fully back, present in our apartment, present in our evenings, present in the way she'd knock on my bedroom door at 11 p.m. and say, "I made tea. Do you want tea?" Which we both knew meant I don't want to go to sleep yet, stay up with me. I always said yes. I always went. October. Her birthday. The second one I'd been there for. The first one I'd really done properly. I bought ingredients. I made the cake myself. I strung the little lights in the living room. Our friends came over. It was exactly the right amount of chaos. Loud for a few hours, and then slowly, gradually everyone else left, and it was just us on the couch with the leftover cake on the counter and the lights blinking above the TV. She was warm and a little wine-soft, and her cheeks were flushed, and she was telling me about something, a conversation she'd had, a person at school who'd said something that stuck. And I was watching her talk, and there was this specific quality to the silence underneath everything. Like the silence was waiting. I ignored it. I did what I always did. I laughed at the right times, I said the right things. I asked the right questions. We sat there until close to midnight. I got up to get water, and when I came back, she had gone very quiet. "What?" I said. "Nothing." She looked at her hands. "Reese." She looked up. And her eyes? There was something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Or maybe I had always seen it, and I had always looked just slightly to the side of it. "I think," she said, and she stopped. "You think what?" She laughed. Short, a little unsteady. "I'm drunker than I thought." "You've had 2 glasses." "I know." She was looking at me now. Really looking. "I know, I just..." She stopped again. She took a breath. "I think I'm in love with you." The room got very quiet. Not the waiting kind of quiet. The arrived kind. "Can you say something? Please." And this is the part where I need to be honest with you. This is the part where I have to say it clearly so you understand what happened next. I wasn't shocked. I was terrified. Because the moment she said it, the exact moment, something in me went completely still and then immediately started moving very fast, like a door being kicked open. Like the difference between not knowing a word and suddenly not being able to remember a time when you didn't know it. I wasn't shocked. I was terrified of what I felt in response to it. So I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. And then she said, "Forget it. I'm drunk. I'm sorry. Forget it. I'm sorry." And I let her. I sat there, and I let her walk it back. And after she went to bed, I sat on that couch alone in the dark with the string lights blinking above me, and I finally looked directly at the thing I had been stepping around for over a year. I sat with it for a long time. Then I went to bed. Because I still wasn't ready. Because being able to name it and being ready to live it are 2 completely different things. And I had spent so long in the careful language of not naming that even having the word felt like more than I could hold. But before I keep going, if you've made it this far, if this feels like a story you know from the inside, then hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it means I can keep making stories like this for you. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe and turn on the bell. That way YouTube will actually tell you when a new story drops. Now, I want to ask you something in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where someone said something out loud that you already knew, and you still weren't ready to hear it? Tell me. Because I think a lot of us have been in that room, on that couch, in that silence. Write it below. I read every single one. And tell me where you're watching from. I'll heart every city. Okay? Back to our story, because the morning after is where everything really started. She came out of her bedroom at 8 in the morning. I was already at the kitchen counter with coffee because I hadn't slept much. I heard her door. I heard her in the hallway. I kept my eyes on my mug. She came into the kitchen. She opened the cabinet. She got down a mug. She poured her coffee. And then she turned around and looked at me and she smiled. Bright. Warm. Normal. "Morning," she said. "Morning." She sat down across from me at the small table. She wrapped both hands around her mug. She looked out the window. "Cold out," she said. "Yeah." We drank our coffee. And this is the thing. This is the thing that almost broke me completely. She wasn't pretending she didn't remember. I could tell. I've known her long enough to know the difference between Reese forgetting and Reese deciding not to. The set of her shoulders. The way she was holding her mug a fraction too tight. She remembered everything. And she had decided we were going to pretend. I should have said something. Right then, in that kitchen. With the morning coming through the window and our coffee going warm between our hands. I didn't. I matched her. I took her out. I said cold out. Yeah. and I matched the normal she was building and I helped her build it. We were very good at that. We had always been very good at that. The week that followed it was fine. That's the word. Fine. We were fine. We were normal. She studied, I worked, we watched TV in the evenings, we talked about everything except the thing. I told myself it was because she needed space. I told myself she had been embarrassed, and the kindest thing I could do was give her the room to not be embarrassed. I was lying. The kindest thing would have been to say something. But saying something would have meant saying everything, and everything was a door I was still standing in front of, hand on the knob, not going through. Until I couldn't not anymore. 3 weeks after her birthday. A Thursday. She came home from class and I was cooking. Actually cooking, which I rarely did. I'd had a stressful day, and it was the only thing I could think to do with my hands. She put her bag down and came and stood in the kitchen doorway and watched me. "You okay?" she said. "Fine." "You always cook when you're not fine." She wasn't wrong. I stirred something that didn't need stirring. "Reese." "Yeah." "I need to say something, and I need you to let me say the whole thing before you respond." The pause. 2 seconds that felt like a season. "Okay," she said. I set down the spoon. I turned around. I looked at her, standing in the doorway in her coat, her bag on the floor, her eyes doing that thing where she's absolutely still on the surface and moving fast underneath. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this for 3 weeks, I said. "And I've been trying to not say it for longer than that. A lot longer. And I know you remember what you said on your birthday. I know you're not going to bring it up because you're giving me an out. And I've been taking the out, and I don't want to take it anymore." She hadn't moved. "Because the truth is," I said, and my voice did something I didn't entirely control. "I think I've been in love with you for a long time. And when you said it, I wasn't surprised. I was scared. Those are different things. And I've spent 3 weeks being scared and I'm tired of it." Silence. The kind that means everything is rearranging. She crossed the kitchen in 4 steps. She stopped right in front of me, close enough that I had to look up slightly to see her face. "I thought you were going to let me just... not," she said. Her voice was very low. "I thought we were going to do the whole thing where we don't." "I know." "I was ready to do the whole thing where we don't." "I know. I don't want to do that anymore." She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were doing the thing, the real thing, the one I'd spent over a year translating incorrectly. "You terrify me," she said. "You terrify me too." "That's not..." She stopped. She laughed. Short, unsteady, real. "That's not how that was supposed to land. I know how you meant it." And she reached out and took my hand. Just that. Just her fingers closing around mine. Warm and careful and absolutely certain. And the thing I'd been stepping around for over a year finally had my full attention. Finally had both of us looking directly at it. It was terrifying. It was the most terrifying thing. It was also the most obvious thing in the world. We didn't talk for 3 days after that conversation. I mean, we talked. We lived together. We had coffee in the morning and food in the evening, and we watched television and we talked about everything that normal life requires talking about. But we didn't talk about it. And here's what I need you to understand. Those 3 days were not silent because we didn't know what we wanted. They were silent because we both knew exactly what we wanted, and we were figuring out what that meant for the life we'd built and the people we'd been inside it. Because the thing is, when you've been best friends first, when someone is already woven into everything, when you've already handed each other all the soft and inconvenient parts of yourselves in the context of friendship, the shift isn't about falling. You've already fallen. Completely. The shift is about deciding to call it what it is. And that decision cost something. Not from each other. Never from each other. From the life I thought I was going to have. The one I'd planned around the version of me that didn't include this. The one where I was someone who understood herself completely and whose heart made clean, simple sense. I called my sister. I sat on my bed with the door closed and I told her. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "Lex, I've known this since you told me about her birthday cake. The first birthday or the second one?" "The first one. When you spent 45 minutes describing the way she laughed when she saw the candles." I stared at the ceiling. I thought I was just being a good friend. "You were," she said. "You also had it so bad it was hard to listen to." She wasn't unkind about it. She asked me what I was going to do. I told her I didn't know yet. She said, "Well, the not knowing part sounds like it's over. Maybe just let the knowing part happen." After I hung up, I sat there for a while in the quiet, and I thought about what it was going to cost. My family, who had an idea of me that didn't have this in it. Friends who might not know what to do with it. The particular architecture of my own self-understanding, which was going to need significant renovation. I thought about all of it. And then I opened my door. Reese was in the living room, sitting on the sidewalk couch, a book open in her lap that she clearly wasn't reading. She looked up when she heard my door. I walked over and sat down next to her. Not on my side. Right next to her. Close enough that our arms were touching. She turned the book over in her hands. She put it down. She looked at me sideways. "I told my sister," I said. "Yeah?" "She said she's known since the first birthday cake." She made a sound, somewhere between a laugh and something more complicated. "My sister knew after the first week I moved in. She said she could tell by how I talked about you." I turned to look at her. She turned to look at me. "We're idiots," I said. "We really are." I took her hand again. She let me, and this time, neither of us let go. 3 months after that, we told the people we were most afraid to tell. Some of them surprised us, easier than we expected, more ready than we'd given them credit for. Some of them needed time. One of them needed more than time. My mother called me twice before she said the right thing. I gave her the space to get there. It cost something. I want to be honest about that. It asked things of me I had to figure out how to give. There were conversations I hadn't prepared for, explanations I hadn't known I'd owe, moments where the gap between who I'd been performing and who I actually was felt very wide and very cold. But here's the thing I learned on the other side of all of it. The gap closes. Not because the world becomes easier, or the people around you become simpler, or the questions stop, but because when you stop spending your energy on the performance, when you stop building elaborate architectures around what you're stepping around, you have so much more of yourself to work with. I became easier to be around because I wasn't managing anything anymore. I became easier to be. And Reese was right there, the whole time, on the other side of every hard conversation, in the apartment we'd already turned into a home. On the sidewalk couch, with her coffee and her specific laugh, and the way she still makes the first pancake a sacrifice, and the way she still calls her sister on Sunday, and I can hear her laughing from across the hallway. She was always right there. I just had to stop looking sideways and actually look. She told me, drunk and brave, and then tried to take it back in the morning. I let her. For 3 weeks I let her. And then I stopped letting her. I walked into that kitchen, and I said the thing, and I let the cost be what it was. Because staying quiet was costing me more. If this story reached something in you, something you recognize, something you've been stepping around, write brave in the comments. That's the word. Brave. Because that's what it takes. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind that happens in a kitchen on a Thursday with a wooden spoon in your hand, and the most important person in your life standing in the doorway. And if you want to stay in this world, stories like this one, stories about love that takes its time and costs something real, click the video on your screen right now. A big hug, and until the next story.